Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show sponsored by Betfred. The great news is that fans will be allowed back in stadiums over many parts of the country. The bad news, of course, is that for the first time a Premier League game will be cancelled due to COVID, and also we mourn the loss of Diego Maradona and Papa Bouba Diop. Now, delighted to say alongside Mark Langdon and myself is a former teammate of mine. Probably thinks he looks like George Clooney. I say more Blake Carrington from Dynasty myself. And if you know what we're talking about, then you're very old. Rob, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Very well. Yeah.
How are the boys?
Boys are good. Yeah. Still one at Luton, one at Hearts. So I spend a lot of time watching them two play at the minute. But hope to get back in the ground soon. As we said, the fans are coming back in slowly. So I hope to get to a game soon.
What are you up to?
Oh, me, Scotty, bits and pieces, and I still watch the.
Can't say on air, can you?
No. I'm fingering a few pies. You know what I'm like, but I've enjoyed over the last few years watching the lads grow up and come through the ranks. It's tough for young players coming through, but I've enjoyed watching them.
You should be very proud of them as well, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Okay, this week's big talking points, Mark. Start with the good news, of course. Fans are back. I mean, how significant is this?
I think this is the biggest step. I think from going from none to 2,004 fans, that is the hardest part. Once you sort of can prove that you can do that, then I think the next steps can happen sort of quicker. Particularly for teams in the EFL that are crying out for that match day revenue. Of course, it's important for the clubs right at the top, but they have more of a security blanket than those that are really, desperate for it. And 2,000 will make a difference, lower down, and hopefully it's the first and the biggest step towards getting back to some kind of normality.
That's what we all want. How big a moment do you feel this is for you?
Yeah, I think it's a big moment. I think the whole world will be watching how it goes, and if we don't get spikes because of people going back to stadiums, which if they do it properly, I can't see we're going to, because it's outdoors. It's if they do it in the right way. I just say we just hope they, in the new year, they can just say, listen, let's try a few more fans, and then gradually get back to having the stadiums full, because football's not the same without it. I don't know what you used to like, but I don't enjoy watching it without the fans. I like. What
do you listen on with the fans or
always with the fans?
Do you?
Always with the fans. Yeah, and I think players, especially top players, want to play with people there. They want to play with crowds shouting them and screaming at them, and I think that's why we're getting some strange results. I think without the crowd there, we're getting some home losses where we wouldn't usually have them, and I think that's all down to the crowd.
In terms of, there's still a lot of quality going on. So how much credit goes to the players, considering what you've been used to? You build up your whole week, don't you, to play in front of 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people. I mean, what would you have been like, and what would St James's Park be like, right now?
Well, I played in years and years ago. I played in a behind closed door game at St James's Park, and it was eerie. It was strange. It's a bit like playing pre-season games some players don't like playing. I hated playing.
You hated
pre-season.
Running full stop.
I hated playing pre-season games.
Unless fans told you to.
I wanted the league games to start, and I couldn't wait to get through. And I think a lot of players are like that. They've had to adjust to say, right, okay, this is going to be how it is for a little while. So, and as I said before, you get players that don't enjoy playing in front of 60, 70,000 that are doing well, and you'll probably get players that we expect to do really, really well, and with no crowd there, it's sometimes it's difficult to get yourself motivated, but it's what they have to do. It's the life we're living at the moment, and I think the football's been decent, but I say it's just not the same without fans.
No, Mark, the bad news that the Villa Newcastle game is called off due to an outbreak of COVID. I suppose it had to happen at some point, didn't it?
I'm surprised it's taken this long, really, and I'm glad it's taken this long, because if that would have happened when football first came back, you can imagine it would have got shut down again pretty quickly. So did well, I think, to get as far as they have. Obviously, it was the Leyton Orient Tottenham game was called off, and there's been a few down in the EFL where it's been more difficult to kind of test on a regular basis. But I think it was inevitable. We've seen it in a lot of other sports where there have been games called off. I hope that there's a bit of sense sort of plays out and sort of nobody tries and chases the points and points deductions and stuff like that. We have seen it in Italy. Napoli refused to travel for a game against Juventus and they were deducted points, lost the game. So there are sort of, I suppose, issues if you do that, but it looks like everybody wants to play fair.
Yeah, I get the feeling common sense will prevail here. I know you haven't spoken to anybody at Newcastle, but being a Newcastle legend, it hurts me to say that, but you are. But you are. I've got to get your thoughts. We're not going to be talking about the game now, obviously, but got to get your thoughts on Newcastle, on Steve Bruce, the job he's doing, with the budget he's got, and the problems off the field as well as on.
Yeah, I think I think what the fans don't like is maybe the style of football. I think what they've got to understand is you can only work with what you've got. And as I've mentioned before, Newcastle spent £37 million on two other players they got on free transfers. And I think they're good Premier League players. And Wilson especially has been a revelation. If he doesn't play, Newcastle don't score enough goals, which is weird really, because when I played, that's all he did do, score goals, never let any in. So I think he's doing a job that people underestimate. And I know anybody who follows Rafa Benitez is going to get stick. Yeah. Anybody. We're in a pandemic where Newcastle are in the will we, won't we sell the club, as usual. Almost sold. Typical Newcastle, not sold. Now something's going to court about why it wasn't sold, and it's a Newcastle is a soap opera. Yeah. And until the club officially gets sold to somebody who wants to put money in, wants to push the club where I think it should be and the fans think it should be, it'll always be the same. As long as they survive, that's the thing that Mike Ashley wants them to do.
I've said this before, Mark, I'd blame Rob. I mean, ever since he left and that team that he had, the most exciting team in Newcastle's history. I mean, try and follow that and keep it up there. Difficult.
I just on that point really that people say, oh, you don't remember losing, you don't remember teams that come second or whatever. But that Newcastle team is one of the most remembered sides in sort of English football history. What was it like to play in that?
It was unbelievable. As I was saying before, it's I watch football now and it's certainly changed for the better. I'm not so sure. When we played, we was never told to we'll sit 4 or 5 here and we'll get on the break and we'll try and especially under Kevin Keegan, it was let's just attack them. We know we're going to let goals in. Let's score more than them. I mean, in those days, if you run it into the corner because you're winning 2-1 and you're starting to waste time, Keegan didn't like that either. So
Andy Cole told me as well they never practiced set pieces. Is that
never,
right?
Never done it. When I first arrived there, when I arrived, I came from Charlton, and I obviously had Alan Kirby on a Friday. We had it's like an hour and a half of who you're marking, who you're picking up. He was very meticulous about stuff like that. I went to Newcastle, arrived on the Wednesday, I think it was, trained Thursday, Friday. We had a 5-a-side. And he said, right, we'll see you all tomorrow. And I just went, I said, Gaffer, who's taking corners and free kicks? And he just said to me, if you're playing well, so just take one. And that was the whole 5 years under Kevin there was no, if you wanted to take a corner, you wanted to take a free kick, then you felt confident, step up and do it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great times, and enjoyed watching them as well, even playing against them. Look, we've got to talk about a few negatives. Terrible thing that happened to Raul Jimenez, of course. He suffered a skull fracture after that clash with David Luiz. He obviously went off, and we wish him all the very best. Luiz stayed on. Blood coming through the bandage and still stayed on. Now, Arsenal say that the correct concussion protocol was followed, and we have no doubt about that. But should there be changes now about what's going on? I mean, should this be allowed?
I mean, obviously I haven't played at the levels that you have, but I mean, watching it as a fan on the sideline, it feels uncomfortable when that happens, and I feel like it should be completely, the concussion sub feels like a pretty obvious thing to do, where you can at least have a proper assessment. The 5-6 minutes doesn't feel long enough. The fact that Luiz then went off and Arteta said he didn't feel 100%, just goes to prove that. I mean, and I know the argument against it is that in rugby they had like the blood sort of replacements, and then there was the cheating scandal. It would be very difficult to come up with a sort of situation where a player pretends to have their head sort of so severely sort of hit in that way that they then sort of can force a concussion substitution. I don't think it would happen. hope it wouldn't happen. But I think the kind of, there's too many negatives now, and players want to carry on. Troy Deeney was on the radio the other day saying it should be up to them. I'm not sure.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you would know more, but I don't feel like the player's in the best position to make that choice.
We're going to say almost all the time.
But I just think it's where do you draw the line? If someone gets hit on the head, are you going to take them off because you might think they've got a concussion? If someone gets cut on the head, it might not be concussed, but there's blood coming. What are we going to do? Take these players off all the time? I don't.
No, but if it's a clear blood coming out and there's been a
blood doesn't mean you're concussed, does it?
No, of course not. But
the same as a bump on the head could, with no blood, could mean it's worse than actual blood.
But if something's more visual and you can see that, then it's more obvious.
Yeah, but then sometimes it's not, is it? I mean, with head injuries, sometimes the more visual it is, the better it is. It's if you've got a lump that's on your head and there's no blood, it might be worse than actually the one that's showing loads and loads of blood coming through. And
so what are you saying then? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's got to be a mixture of both. I think someone's got to assess them, but I think if the player says he's okay and the doctor says he's okay, I've done the test and he's okay, then let him play on. Otherwise, we'll have no players left in the field.
But it doesn't happen all the time, does it?
No, but
and a bump is.
Well, it doesn't happen all the time. But I'm saying if people bump heads, I mean, what are we going to do? Stop people going for headers and bumping it? I don't know where we're going with it. I don't know. I mean, it's a game of it's a physical contact sport. We've got to have some physical contact.
Yeah, well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. I think we'll move
Maybe
on.
I'm old school.
We'll carry on after. We're allowed to go out for a coffee and a substantial meal now, so we can do that afterwards.
Yeah. Scotch egg, be great.
Look, before we talk about the weekend's games as well, I've got to touch on the sad news as well of Diego Maradona and Papa Bouba Diop. What do you want to say about Maradona, and where do you feel he stands in the greatest ever?
It's sort of like I'm 54. He's my era sort of thing. Pelé, I know all about Pelé. I know what a great player he was, but he was a little bit. So the person who I watched a lot in World Cups and dragging Napoli from nowhere to 2 leagues was Maradona. He's of what I've seen, because as I said, I didn't see Pelé, and I know there's loads of comparisons, and it's very difficult to compare.
You've seen Messi, you've seen Ronaldo.
I have, but I just think Maradona was playing in a different era. I think the era was tougher. Tackles he had to ride, the pitches he had to play on, and still a great player. And to be fair, let's also, his off-field activities. Imagine if he was clean cut and. Imagine some player would have been there. You know what I mean? I think he said himself, didn't he? He took all his drugs and drink to make players get as close as they can to him, because he would have been miles and miles above anybody. And I think he was the main. We've got Messi, we've got Ronaldo, we've got some great players. I think Ronaldo was Maradona was way better than anybody else.
Really interesting. I told you last week, didn't I? Glenn Hoddle told me a story about that goal. In Mexico, he said the heat, the humidity, the altitude, the pitch in terms of the length of the grass, but also it was really patchy and bobbly. So for him to score that goal where it was just tied to his shoelaces, his bootlaces, wasn't it?
That's coming from Glenn Hoddle.
That's coming from Glenn Hoddle.
One of our greatest.
One of our most talented players
ever, yeah.
Incredible. But look, Maradona perhaps crammed 100 years into his 60, I think it's fair to say. Papa Bouba Diop, probably more tragic to lose him, isn't it, at 42?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely no age at all. He had been suffering, with illness for a while, sort of out of the limelight, wasn't widely discussed. Somebody that made an impact in the Premier League for a number of teams, but I think sort of the moment I remember him most for was that 2002 World Cup when Senegal beat what was a brilliant French team. I mean, they had their issues, if you think they'd won the '98 World Cup, they'd won Euro 2000. It was like that Spain team that sort of took over from them. And Senegal, a lot of their players were either living in France and probably wanted to represent France. Some of them, and to win that game was a remarkable achievement. Of course, he scored the goal.
Yeah, we send our condolences to both families, of course. I've just realised that unless we're in the same indoors, which we're not, we can't go out for a meal, can we? So we'll have to save it for another time. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Let's talk about the weekend's games. Unfortunately, the Friday night game, Aston Villa versus Newcastle, is postponed for now. So let's go ahead to Burnley versus Everton. And Mark, Burnley came back down to earth, losing by 5 to City after their first win of the season the week before. It actually could have been more as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, and they always lose 5-0 to Man City. Felt like as soon as like the game was up a long way out, and they were maybe already thinking about sort of other matches to come. Nick Pope is a very sort of steady sort of goalkeeper for them, and I think that they did miss him as well. I mean, there's a big difference between Man City and Burnley. I think Burnley will see this as a more winnable game. They've had a really tough run of fixtures, actually, Burnley. If you think of City, they played Chelsea and Tottenham back to back. And, you know, outside of those games, they've actually started to pick up a couple of points. They beat Palace, they drew against West Brom and Brighton. So I think Sean Dyche will just accept that you know, one game too far for them.
But, I mean, Burnley have played a game fewer, but they've made the fewest shots, fewest shots on target, and not surprisingly, they've only scored 4 goals. Where do you see them this season? Do you think they can survive? Because we've been talking about it. Is this the season where eventually they go down? What's your take?
No, I think Sean Dyche is a good manager. I like him. You know, he sets them up, as we said before, not to lose. And they've got you know, Chris Wood is a proven goal scorer. He gets his fair share of goals every year. They might not score a lot, but I think his conversion rate will be very, very good for the amount of chance he gets. I think they'll be fine. I think they really will be fine. They've had a few beatings recently, but I think they'll be okay. They'll win enough games to stay up. Yeah.
Mentally strong, I think that's fair to say what they are. I mean, how disappointing were Everton against Leeds?
Yeah, they were. I thought Leeds could have won sort of more convincingly. Everton had their chances, but Leeds will always do that, you know, and give you opportunities. And it's something we have spoken about, that when they haven't got their best 11 out, and it was the fullbacks that were missing at the weekend, they just don't look the same team. And I think Ancelotti may wish he could re-pick that side as well, because it looked like a bit of a mess in the first half, really. Leeds were getting in down the sides of the wing-backs whenever they wanted, really. So it wasn't good from Everton. And yeah, I mean, you've been sort of not negative about them, Scott, but you always like hold on, you know, like when people were getting quite excited about them. And I think they've now just regressed to sort of where they are, sort of, you know, in the pecking order.
Talk about me being negative. He's more negative than realistic is the word. What do you feel Everton are capable of this season? And if they are to do well, this is the type of game they need to be winning, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Everton are in that group that could do something. If they had a run to start the season, then they've had their up and down, sort of like win one, lose, you know, lost to Newcastle, and maybe games they should win, they lose. But no one's running away with it this year. Liverpool are not running away with it. Man City are way off it at the minute. You know, Arsenal are nowhere near it. Spurs are doing well, but I don't think they've got Harry Kane. So I think if they get a run, and you know, I've been really impressed with Calvert-Lewin. I think he's been most improved player I've seen for the last couple of years. At this moment, he looks unstoppable. I think if to say if he against Burnley, if you score early against them, I think they have to come out a little bit, and then they start conceding lots of goals. And I think with someone like Calvert-Lewin, with the pace he's got on the height he jumps, and he's scoring goals. So I think they're going to struggle to contain him.
So just in a word, where do you feel they could finish?
I think they could finish maybe just outside the top 4.
Okay, which would still be very good for them.
Yeah.
What's your Betfred selection then for this game?
Well, mine is for just raving about him, and also Calvert-Lewin to score and Everton to win.
I've gone exactly the same, actually. Good thinking. I think he'll keep it tight. We'll see if we know what's up after.
Not.
I think Burnley will keep it tight. I think it will be tough for Everton. But yeah, Calvert-Lewin for me is.
But if you're trying to keep it, I always find if you're trying to keep it tight and you let one in,
you struggle then.
Then
what's Plan B?
Exactly. Yeah. What is Plan B?
Mark, you?
I'm going to go for a draw. I mean, Everton have only won one of their last 6, and the fullbacks is a bit of a concern for me. They create a lot of their chances.
Okay. Game preview 2. It is Manchester City against Fulham. Now, City have won the last 9 meetings against Fulham. They've scored 27 goals in that time, conceded just 3. The last time I looked, City on the Betfred website were 9-1 on. Fulham were 22-1 to win. I mean, it was some performance against Burnley, wasn't it, last weekend? Back to their best?
I wouldn't. I don't think it's back to their best. No, I still think that there's something just lacking a little bit. And we saw it against Porto in the Champions League. They created enough chances to win the game. And I know against Burnley that they put them away, but if City are at their best, they're winning sort of more games 3-4, 5-0 rather than just against Burnley. And I still think there's I can't quite work out what it is. I mean, it could just be Aguero not being there and maybe to finish it all off. But even on the wings, and Amari's got his hat-trick, which I think is really important because the wingers I felt had been against Tottenham were a little bit too safe and they weren't kind of trying to beat their man and sort of those one-on-ones that can make the difference. So I don't think they're back to their best, no.
Okay. Put me in my place.
That was a long way. It was a long answer to say no.
No.
That's why you're here, not to give one-word answers. Although if they win again here 5-0, then maybe we could say it. But it's a build-up of results. I do get that. I mean, they've not won back-to-back league games yet this season. That's really surprising. What do you put this down to? City not firing in the way we expected them to.
Spotted it.
Purely Aguero.
And David Silva. He's a huge miss, creativity. But all teams that win leagues and have a goal scorer, someone who scores when they're not playing well, someone who scores out of nothing, and someone who's their focal point. And he's done it for so long. Jesus is a very good player. For me, he's nowhere near Aguero, and I think they massively miss him. They'll have enough to beat Fulham, obviously, but. For the big games against the Liverpools, they need him back.
Yeah, to win titles and trophies, they need him. Fulham haven't won back-to-back away league games in the Premier League since 2013, but it was a very good performance against Leicester,
Fantastic.
wasn't it?
I thought it was one of the performances of it was on Monday, but in that match week, it was something that we haven't seen really from Fulham this season. They looked like they benefited from Mitrovic not playing, which you would never have said sort of this time last year, but there was more fluidity to their counter-attack. It was a game I felt they thoroughly deserved to win, really. I was a bit nervous for them at the end there. When it got to 2-1, you just, like, if they would have dropped more points there, I think Scott Parker would have, you're then wondering, aren't you, what else have we got to do? It was a good performance. Anguissa in midfield absolutely dominated Leicester, and they thoroughly deserved the win.
What do you make of the job that Scott Parker's doing? It's a difficult job for an experienced manager. He's clearly still learning on the job, but do you like the way he's coming across?
Yeah, I like Scott Parker. I've liked him as a player, and I think he's doing really, really well as a manager. I think Premier League's tough, isn't it? If you haven't got the money, that even if you have got it, you've got to buy the right players. And sometimes you're relying on the players that are on the field. Certainly, if they can't take penalties, then they got one against Leicester. But yeah, I thought they were. I watched the. I thought they were brilliant against Leicester. Yeah. I thought they were brilliant, but with Mitrovic not playing, again we're talking about they're set up to counter attack. That's why Mitrovic's not playing. He ain't got the pace. So they've got masses and Lookman, and they've got huge amounts of pace. But as I said before, if Man City score early,
and they're not going to have much of the ball here, Fulham, are they?
No.
So what's your Betfred selection for this one?
Oh, mine was over 5 goals. I'm not going to tell you who's going to score them, but
City getting
it's pretty obvious. Over 5 goals in this match.
I'm going to go for Man City to win to 0, all bar one of their victories in the Premier League this season. I've been to 0. I do think they've tightened up a bit at the back.
Yeah, I've gone similar to you. I think this could be similar to the Burnley game. Not quite as many goals, I have to say, but I think City will win both halves. So that's my bet there. Okay, game preview 3. Good game this one, actually. West Ham against Manchester United. And let's start with Manchester United, should I say. That was some comeback against Southampton, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Southampton, they're very, very good. It's probably the most improved team in the Premier League. So to come back, but the Man United of old wouldn't be in that position. They wouldn't. I know they haven't got a great record against Southampton away, but they just seemed so erratic to me. They've got some fantastic players. Rashford's brilliant. Greenwood looks like a. When they always play West Ham away, it never goes the way you think it's going to go. It's always tough. But Man United always find it tough against West Ham, I think. West Ham, again, are doing very, very well. So, it's not going to be... you never know with Man United, do they? They'll either win comfortably or they'll
Yeah, which is the same as West Ham as well.
Well,
really,
exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah, they're
but West Ham have
similar.
won their last 2 home league games against United, so it is a difficult place clearly for them to go to. Edison Cavani, he's caused controversy off the field, but he's making an impact on it, hasn't he?
I felt like he was something they missed. I'm a big fan of Anthony Martial, but I don't know if he's ever going to be that sort of true number 9 that they want. It feels like he wants to sort of drift into the wider areas as well, and obviously Greenwood sort of plays out there. Rashford tends to be a wide forward, so they just needed somebody that could be sort of a proper sort of number 9 for them. And early on he struggled, Cavani, but that was because they weren't putting crosses into the box. Whenever he came on, it was always at the expense of sort of the wide players. But if you put crosses into the box for Cavani, it doesn't matter really that he's getting older. He still instinctively knows where to make those runs. He's still good in the air, and he's still a quality player. And it felt like he definitely added something to to their attack.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank talking about movement. He's got the movement. I think he's got the best out of the lot, hasn't he? Our old side, West Ham, dominant against Villa. Not really, no. Got away with it, I think it's fair to say. But it's 3 wins from 3 after what we've been talking about, very difficult fixtures. They're getting the wins, aren't they? And what's David Moyes doing different? We're hearing this morning that he's going to be signing a new contract.
Yeah, I think he's done really well. Probably not the manager that the West Ham fans would have wanted in if they had the choice. But I think he'd done well before. I think it was harsh not to get the job after he'd kept him up beforehand. So yeah, I think he's doing. He deserves a new contract. I think he's doing really well. I think manager, if they buy well, you've got half a chance. If they're in charge of buying the players, which I believe David Moyes is now. And I can't understand clubs that bring a manager in and then have somebody else buy the players, because how can you blame the manager then if they're either not good enough or he can't fit in the way he wants to play? So, I'm a believer that if you bring a manager in, the reason you bring him in, a big percentage of the reason you bring him in is because he's got an experience of getting good players to the club, not wasting money. And I think Bowen, I think, has been a fantastic signing from Championship team. He doesn't look out of place at all. He's scoring goals I think they'll. At the start of the season, I thought they would struggle massively. I thought they were going to be in serious trouble
after that Newcastle defeat and then the run of fixtures.
Exactly, and then fixtures coming up. But he's studied the boat, and they look now. Well, they 5th. They look like they're again. It's because no one's going to run away with it, and I don't think it's because the fans are not in. We're getting some strange results. It's a strange season.
Some have said that's helped West Ham. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we know what West Ham fans can be like. If you're playing well, they're brilliant. If you're not playing so well,
they'll let you know.
Yeah, they'll certainly let you know. So teams will go and say, well, let's keep the crowd quiet for 20 minutes. They'll start getting on their backs. Some of the players will start to hide. And they haven't got that at the moment. They haven't got none of that.
So how do you see this game panning out?
I've gone for a draw. Massive
because
a draw. Because of what we said, that they're both sort of like similar teams. They're both erratic. They both score. So I just because of the fixture, I think it's going to just be a draw, score draw.
This is not good news. I seem to be agreeing with you on everything so far. I'm sure we'll disagree.
We're either really good or we're really bad.
I would say great minds, but just keep it in mind. I don't see West Ham losing this, actually. I really don't. And I think there will be goals. So Manchester United perhaps show a bit of character. It'll be interesting to see the starting 11. There's always a selection issue with Solskjaer. But how do you see this panning out?
I think goals. I think it'd be a really exciting game. Could be the sort of best game of the weekend. This one, so I was going for over 2.5 goals. All the United's games this season away from home in the Premier League have featured at least 3 goals, and West Ham have scored in every game since that sort of Newcastle debacle.
Okay, that would be a good game. This will be a good game as well. Chelsea against Leeds at the Bridge, Saturday evening. And Rob, we'll come on to Spurs a little bit later, but what did you make of Chelsea last weekend? Did you feel they were not too defensive, but scared perhaps of opening up for fear of the counter? Or was that understandably so?
Well, I think they've got such pace and such attacking players that I think the problem is it's getting the team that wins the league will get the balance right, and I think Frank's trying to get the balance right now. He's got some, Verm has been. I think it's just. I saw him play at Newcastle, we both did, and he was unbelievable. Didn't score, but he was.
Could have got a hat-trick.
He could have got a hat-trick at least. And I don't know if he's that sort of player. If he comes into his own and he starts, Tammy Abraham, again, they've got great pace. They've got players that can, and that's without all the, got a few injuries. Hulsick, he was on fire before he got injured. And I think it's getting the blend right of actually, if you're attacking in numbers like that, you're going to let goals in. And I don't think it'll bother Frank too much as long as they score more than they let in, which is, basically what they're doing at the moment. They're going to let goals in. I think when teams attack, you're always open, and they're not great defensively. I think they're okay. I don't think they're.
I think they've been shored up a lot, haven't they, with Mendy and Silva coming in.
Yeah,
Chilwell as well.
Yeah, Chilwell's been a very, very good signing. I think he looks so comfortable. Silva again, always lack leaders. I think this era of football always has lacked. Even look at all the top clubs lack leaders. And I think he's done everything. He's done everything on the continent, and he's come here. What's he, 36? But he's got young legs around him. He just needs to. Zuma looks a different player playing next to him. I think he's got all the athleticism. He's got the pace, and he's probably showing a little bit of nous now of actually where to go and where to stand, and he's organising that defence. So I think they look good. Captain
immediately. I think that says everything, doesn't it? Mark, Frank Lampard's first meeting against Leeds since the playoff semi-final. With Derby, there's also Spygate as well.
Yeah,
a bit extra.
There will be. Obviously, it would have been, and Chelsea v Leeds is a sort of a classic English fixture from a bygone era. So it's a shame that the bridge won't be full, and you've got sort of a big away following as well, because it could have really sort of gone off.
That'd be a great atmosphere there, wouldn't it?
It really would. It really would have been. I think in terms of what Frank Lampard needs to do is to just get that balance right, because in the big games he sort of shut down Tottenham and he shut down Manchester United, but they lost a little bit of what they sort of got elsewhere. Maybe he's picked up something from, say, a Mourinho type, where actually it's the kind of league where if you don't lose to your direct rivals and just pick off sort of those bottom sort of 8 teams or whatever, that could be the way to win the league. So this will be a very different test, though, to what Tottenham provided, because Leeds won't be parking any buses.
No, they'll be running around man-to-man marking everywhere. Do you like what you see with Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa?
Yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job. I mean, I think the couple of seasons I saw him in the Championship, they seemed to run out of steam. I don't know if it's the way he trained them. You hear stories of him training them 3 times a day. No days off, but they're very, very fit. So whether it took them a couple of seasons, because they seem to, when I watched them, they seem to, up to Christmas they were unbelievable, and they seem to drop off as the season went on. So I'd be interested to see, because I mean, with what's been happening with the coronavirus, we have had a short pre-season. We haven't had much time. There's lots and lots of games, and the way they play, they've got young legs. But it'd be interesting to see how they get on come the new year, whether they actually do again.
I think they'll be okay. There were more games in the Championship, and I think he knows what he's doing. And last season, you have to say, they didn't tire towards the end. Just in one word before we go to the Betfred selection, do you feel Chelsea are title contenders?
Without a doubt, yeah, they're up there. As I said, no one's going to run away with it. Not like last year with Liverpool. No one's running away with it this year, and I think Chelsea are one of the contenders.
Okay, that was about 25 words. But
sorry,
don't worry.
Apologise.
What is your Betfred selection for this game?
Mine is for Timo Werner to score first, but it ended in a draw.
Yeah, I think that Chelsea are opposable here. I'm going to go for Leeds or draw, double chance of Chelsea not to win.
Are you? I'm going. I think Leeds will keep it tight in the first. Or not keep it tight, but not concede in the first. I think Chelsea will come on strong and their quality will show. So I'm going to go for draw half-time, Chelsea full-time. Game preview 5 on Sunday, West Brom versus Crystal Palace. Now, how big a win was that for West Brom last week, their first of the season?
Well, I mean, Slaven Bilic had been, the longer it goes on, it just gets harder and harder, doesn't it, to get over the line for the first time. I felt they played okay against Tottenham and Manchester United, and so maybe the Sheffield United game was the perfect one for them. I'm not actually sure they did deserve to win. Sheffield United had a lot of shots and missed a number of chances, but Bilic will probably feel like there were times earlier on in the season when maybe they didn't get what they deserved, but it was absolutely massive that they got the win, because it already looks like they're sort of a bottom 4 now, and there's already sort of detachment to the rest of the league, so that they could already be having their own sort of little mini fight.
Yeah, Slaven Bilic said beating Sheffield United was worth more than just 3 points. Can you understand what he means? It It's a crucial game with two teams that are really struggling down there at the time. Neither of them had won a game.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic win. I mean, Sheffield United are having a massive struggle at the moment after what they did last year. I still think they'll turn it round, but yeah, I think I've watched West Brom a few times. They play some good stuff again, but like all teams down there, are they going to score enough goals? I don't think so. You need, as you said, you need some sort of a goal scorer that's proven the Premier League gets you 20 goals a season to push you even.
They're not going to be able to have that with the budget they've got.
No, that's the problem. They all have down there if you haven't got a goal scorer.
What do you make of Palace? Good start, back-to-back losses, 3 defeats in 4. They're now 15th.
Again, they started so well. I saw against Newcastle. They were dreadful. I think they're a totally different team if Zaha don't play, which is sad, and it's wrong really. If he doesn't play, they don't seem to even look like scoring goals. I mean, for them to rely on one player that much is not good for him, because if he's missing for any sort of Mr. Newcastle, it didn't look like scoring.
No,
they've got no one else to score the goals. So, I unless they get him back, I think they'll struggle down the bottom.
If he were to have a serious injury, obviously we hope he doesn't, would you see them perhaps even in a relegation fight? Do you think they'd be okay?
Without doubt, I think they'll get dragged in. I think if you can't score goals, you'll get dragged in. There's no doubt about it. And they're not great at the back, so that's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, Betfred selection for this game.
Well, I went for both teams to score. Not because they're both good at scoring, just that they're both bad at the back. So I think they'll in this game against the opposition, they'll both be expecting to win the game, and I think they'll both score.
Mark?
I'm going to go for a draw. I always seem to go for a draw when Crystal Palace are playing somebody of a similar standard to them. I think both teams will see it as important not to lose the game.
Yeah, I can't see many goals in this game at all. I know what you mean about defences, but I think they are quite poor going forward as well. I think there'll be just one goal in this game. Palace have only kept one clean sheet all season. That was the first game of the season. So I think Albion can get it back-to-back wins. I fancy them to win 1-0. Game preview 6, Sheffield United against Leicester. And if that win for West Brom was a massive psychological boost, what did defeat mean for Sheffield United?
Well, it's a blow. But I know Chris Wilde. I played with him when I was a youngster at Charlton many years ago. And
Me too.
Yeah, right back then, marauding down the wing. Tough little character. He'll turn it round. I think he'll turn it round. He's got the confidence to do that. I hope they give him the time to do it, because he's done unbelievably well for that club. I said we all know it's a limited budget, but again, I keep saying it, they haven't got the players to score the goals. They didn't have a lot, but last year they were very, very tight at the back. They didn't let many goals in. I think this year they've seeped a few goals. I think maybe teams have worked them out of how to play against them, and but yeah, it'd be a blow that they of that defeat. But eventually he'll turn it around.
Yeah, I know Chris well as well, and I have no doubt what he's done to that club. Just a few years ago, they were sitting in the 3rd tier of English football. To get where he is, absolutely outrageous. In
a short space of time as well.
Very short space of time. And I have no doubt he will turn it around if he's given the time, and I certainly hope he is. But how do you see it? Because it doesn't look good. They are bottom, 9 defeats from 10, 1 draw, 4 goals.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all hope that they do stick by him. Even if they went down, who better to sort of help bring them back up again? But it doesn't always work like that. But it feels like he should have enough trust to be able to do that. I think they're probably just in a position that most people expected them to be in this time last season, fighting against relegation. It was a brilliant time. I think that the injury to O'Connell and the loss of Henderson have been really key to them at the back. I also think they've been a little bit unlucky in the final third. I mean, they're like tight games that have gone against them, like Leeds could have gone either way. There was a brilliant save from Meslier in that game. West Ham, Haller sort of put one into the top corner, hasn't done that sort of before or since in the Premier League. West Brom, I felt like they should have got something out of that game as well. And so they're in a lot of games, even like at Anfield, they only lost 2-1. They lost narrowly against Arsenal as well. So they're in a lot of matches, and just need something to go for them, and it might come sooner rather than later, I think.
You've given us a little hint there. I mean, let's talk about Leicester, because they were surprisingly poor against Fulham, weren't they? I mean, how did you see that game?
Yeah, I thought they were terrible against Fulham for a large part of the game, and they were equally bad against Liverpool, who were there for the taking the week before, and we saw then Liverpool, drew with Brighton the game after. They'd lost to Atalanta. Leicester, that was a no-show from them in that game. I think that they've got some injuries at the moment that are hampering them. I also think Maddison has gone off the boil hugely. It wasn't that long ago that he was sort of seen ahead, or at least at the same level as Grealish, and now you kind of look at those two and that they've headed in very different directions. And of course, if nobody's supplying Vardy, he can't do it on his own. So I'm a bit concerned for Leicester.
Okay. Betfred selection for this one. Let's start with you.
Yeah, Sheffield United to win. I just think they're too big a price, and things have been going against them, but they won't continue to.
I hope I'm wrong, knowing Chris well. I just wonder whether Leicester will bounce back. Sheffield United struggling to score goals. I've gone for Leicester to win. And I think Sheffield United, for me, the performances haven't been bad. They have been decent, but then they can be opened up. And I think that Leicester will counter them really well. So I've gone for Leicester to win 2-0.
Yeah, I've gone from this game, with Vardy playing, I've gone for no goals. Because I just think Chris is going to get it right at the back. And Mark said, if you stop Vardy, if they play the way that they deeply can't get behind you, and you stick close to Maddison, who's not playing as well as he was playing, again, if Vardy doesn't score, they don't score loads of goals. And if he's the one that creates all their problems, because he stretches teams, and if he can't get behind, I just think that Chris might get it right. I think but again, at the other end, I don't think they'll score. So I've gone for no goals at all. I've gone for no goals in this game.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, next up, some game this. Spurs have had some good games recently, haven't they? This one, is it right at the very top because it's Arsenal?
For the fans, yeah, it is the biggest game. I mean, in terms of the league table, I mean, obviously Arsenal are really struggling at the moment, but it comes at the end of a really difficult period for Tottenham in the Premier League. Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, then it's Crystal Palace, then it's Liverpool. So I think it's fine to draw and play defensive in those away games.
How many buses did he park at the bridge last week?
Look, I think the first half, was how Tottenham wanted to play. They were defensively solid, but they had a break option, and the final ball wasn't quite right, and they looked threatening in the second half. It was back to the wall stuff. They still had a really big opportunity late on when Lo Celso, I don't know what he was doing with that kind of chip when he had runners either side. But defensively, I think defensively has always been Tottenham's concern. After the West Ham game, he has completely shut that up now, and this is not happening again. And the forwards that they've got are helping the defence, because if a team like Chelsea is scared to really go for them, having Son and Bergwijn and Kane is actually helping out Eric Dyer and the rest of them at the back. So it's been an amazing start. I didn't expect this as a fan. I didn't expect it as a punter either, to see Tottenham at the top of the Premier League. I don't think they'll be there at the end, but I think they'll finish in the top four now, and that would be a big result for them.
Defenders' dream to have those, and as you say, defending from the front then, really, especially if you've got Harry Kane playing left back sometimes and centre half. I mean, what did you make of the tactics of Jose Mourinho at the bridge last week? Well, was it right to do that and just get the draw? That's
what he does, isn't it? You look at wherever he's been, he's regardless of what players he's got, his first thing is defensive. His first thing is not let's get the attacking right and then we'll sort the defence out. Let's get a solid defence.
But it was obvious there. It was almost like, do you know what? So there were almost like two boxes. One that didn't want to open up because for fear of the counter punch. The other one saying, I'll take this to 12 rounds and we'll see what happens to the judges.
I think, he'll take it 12 rounds, but he's also got a slugger punch, and he's got a big right hook in Harry Kane and Son that
never
if you leave yourself open, they can. And, again, I'm surprised to see him at the top. But he's such a good organiser. He always wins. He's a winner, and that's what makes you think that Spurs are not out of this race.
Do you feel they're right up there for title?
I think they're, again, as I said before, no one's running away with this. So I think Spurs are. He's a born winner. He's got best centre forward I think in the world in Harry Kane. So I think in that you've got a chance.
I agree with you on that. Look, Arsenal been really poor in recent games. They're not scoring. Aubameyang's, what's happened to him since he signed his contract, and defensively they don't look great. one, what do you make of them right now and Mikel Arteta? But two, is this the worst game or the best game to have up against your fiercest rivals?
Well, I think Arteta's done it. Listen, he's won a trophy. He's done a good job in a short space of time. And I think what he's trying to do is play the right way that he's been taught with Pep Guardiola and even the way he played. He's got a lot of kids. He's got a lot of kids in the team, all learning. As you say, Aubameyang. Is he a centre forward? Is he a left sided? I don't know. I still don't know if he's.
Where would you play him?
I'd actually say to him, where do you want to play? And I'd build my team around him because it's down to him. I think when you got a player like that, and you have to say, listen, where do you want to play? And I will play you there, and I will fit everybody else because he's there. That's why he signed a long-term contract. That is their main goal scorer. And I think sometimes when he plays left, he gets left out of it. I mean, he doesn't see the ball, and I don't want to see him because every time it seems to me every time he gets a chance, he scores, but he doesn't get loads of chances. Again, I don't think they've got a focal point, like we've been saying again. With Cavani for Man United, I think, and Aguero for Man City when they have a focal point. I think you need a focal point.
I'm agreeing with you far too many times today. Definitely about Aubameyang. Where do you want to play? I think he's that good and that important to the team. What would it mean though for Arsenal? You put an Arsenal hat on if you can.
No, I can.
If they lost this and lost this heavily.
I'm probably lucky that there's no fans in at the moment because it wasn't just some of the defeats against Aston Villa. Aston Villa have been on a bad run of results apart from when they absolutely destroyed Arsenal and Leeds outplayed them and it was 0-0. And then Wolves, without Jimenez for most of the game, have still managed to beat them. I think that some fans are already turning against Arteta. And this is the funny thing when people say, oh, you've got to win as a manager, you've got to win, you've got to win trophies. You've won an FA Cup, but then they go, oh, it's about the league form, And so you can work it both ways.
There's always something to be negative about.
I mean, if you're an Arsenal manager and you're in 14th spot, you are under big pressure. You've got no kind of results to fall back on in terms of experience of, I did this 2 years ago, I've done this with, another team. They got rid of Unai Emery reasonably quickly. If he loses this game, I think he's under really big pressure. And I'm not saying it's right, but he really is under it.
What do you feel about it? I personally feel he's the right man and he's going to be needed time. Hasn't got leaders, got youngsters. Just give him a couple of windows and I think we'll see exactly what Arsenal fans want to see. But how do you see it and do you think he will be given time?
I hope, again, I hope he's given time. That was the guy they went after. That's the guy they wanted. They got him and he won an FA Cup straight away. League form's not been good. But again, I think you have to give him this window. But again, it'd be who he buys.
Just this window, not the summer window as well. This
window's
always notoriously difficult.
If you give him this window and he still finishes 15th, 14th, 15th, then Arsenal manager, not because he's... Just because he's it's Arsenal. If you finish 15th, you're getting sacked. They shouldn't if he buys the right players because they got enough players to be in top half of the table. But I just think it's what players he buys and how he fits them in and how Aubameyang plays. Because since he signed his contract, he hasn't played well at all.
A big thing is that he's made this sort of like getting rid of Ozil, and that's fine if he wants to do that. But then if you don't create any chances, people then go, well, hold on, if we had Ozil in the team, and then, I don't get the Ozil thing. I don't get it. I think if you're struggling the way they're struggling, and you're paying him £350,000,
Does that matter?
Play him.
What they're paying him?
Well, they must rate him. Somebody's rated him because I wouldn't pay someone.
A few years ago when he signed the contract, maybe not now.
Well, again, it's the same with Ozil. You've got to say, right, this is how we're going to play. Aubameyang, you play where you want to play. Everybody else, because they've got loads of kids with loads of pace and loads of legs, you all work around them. We get him the ball, he gets him the ball, and he scores. If not using him is lunacy to me.
But if he's not doing what Arteta wants in terms of the philosophy, is that not a signal to the rest of the players that actually it's not about my philosophy, it's if results go bad, I'll go to him. And ironically enough, the counter-argument to that is the 4-2-3-1 that we saw them in, Ozil will be perfect in that number 10 role.
I think desperate times need desperate measures. I think if my job was on the line and I've got him, probably in training taking the mickey out of players, and everyone's going, well, why is he not playing? I've had it before at teams that I've been playing where players are left out, not because he's not a good footballer, because he don't fit in the way that we want to play. But Ozil never fitted in any way. He's always had to play the way he wants to play, because you have to take the good and the bad. It's a bit like David Ginola. We knew he wasn't coming back. So John Beresford, sometimes we got battered down our left-hand side, but we also knew if we got him the ball on his day, no one was stopping him.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to bring him back into the fold to create chances.
Okay, interesting. Betfred selection for this one.
Well, I've gone for an outrageous sort of. I think Harry Kane's record against Spurs is pretty good. I think it's 12 games, 10 goals, and he's due a hat trick.
Ooh.
I think he's due a hat, and he's playing so well, and I just think he's going to get a hat trick, and Tottenham are obviously going to win.
Wow, sounds like a big win.
I'll sell for that. I think I thought Tottenham were a very fair price, given the you look at the gap between the two in the league at the moment. I'm not sure it will be there come the end of the season, but in terms of confidence, there's a big difference between the two teams at the moment, and I think Spurs will win.
Yeah, I think Spurs will win it as well. I actually think it'll be a very tactical, cagey game. I think Jose won't want to concede that first goal. Neither will Arteta either. I can only see one goal in this. I'm giving it to Son. But a Tottenham win. Okay, game preview 8 on Sunday. It is Liverpool against Wolves. I mean, this is an interesting game as well, isn't it? Liverpool held by Brighton. Was that a good result, not just for Brighton, but for the whole of the Premier League?
It wasn't good for Liverpool, was it? I mean, it's
So yes.
Listen, Liverpool, they're missing the best centre half in the world. Simple as that. I think he's the one that they massively miss.
But they didn't concede because of that, did they?
No, but I just think his presence. I think some people got a presence about him, and if they're playing, even if they're not playing well, they're there. Do you know what I mean? Alan Shearer's a prime example. I played loads of times, and sometimes he wasn't playing well, but his presence was there, and everyone's even the opposition are like, he can score at any time here, but he could actually be having a nightmare, which sometimes he was, to be fair. So I think some people got that presence, and I think he's got that, and also, but I watched quite a lot of Brighton. I like the way Brighton play. I think they play some great stuff. They've lost games when they should have got something from the game, and I do like the way. I was a bit dubious when he replaced Chris Hughton, and I thought.
Well, we'll come on to Brighton, because it is interesting you saying that, and I totally understand what you're saying. But how do you feel Wolves will set up here? Do you feel they'll, maybe see this is Liverpool, we need to be careful, we need to be cagey, which is what they normally are in the first half of games, or do you think they can say, look, they are vulnerable right now, let's go for it?
Well, they are vulnerable. We all know that, and they've got Wolves. One thing they've got some pace. They're very, very well organised. But it's, I think Liverpool will have enough. I mean, Jota, I think, was a great signing. I was like, buying Jota. Who's he going to replace? Mane, Salah, Firmino don't score loads of goals, but he gels them together. And I thought, that's a lot of money for him. But he's been a revelation, hasn't he? He's been unbelievable.
Arguably their best player.
Yeah, and I think now, if you look at it, he's probably their first pick of their front three, which is amazing. So
does he play all four? Does he drop someone? What do you think?
I
mean, he has to play against his former side, isn't he? And the
the forwards in, he'll definitely play. Firmino, the one that doesn't score, isn't he? Firmino's probably the droppable one, but again, I think he gels them a little bit. So it's a tough call.
Played all four against City, didn't he?
I think he might do. He's still got quite a lot of injuries in midfield as well, so he might as well stick another attacker on there. I don't know how much faith he's got in the defence at the moment. Obviously, Alisson was out as well against Ajax. Young Irish goalkeeper came in, kept a clean sheet, but it's still not ideal, is it?
No, I mean, who do you think he'll go for in goal?
I think he'll probably stick with it because Adrian's had a nightmare and doesn't look like he's got the confidence actually to be a goalkeeper for Liverpool. I think what happened against Aston Villa just completely destroyed him really, and probably that went on he cost them the game against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League sort of just before the lockdown as well. So I think that Klopp trusting the young players. Curtis Jones is another one that he'll quite happily stick in there. You have Williams and Phillips and people like that. I don't think he's somebody that sort of is obsessed with experience. He'll go with who he thinks is the better pick. But for Wolves, obviously Jimenez is going to be out for a long time.
Yeah.
And such an important player for them. I know they won against Arsenal with him out, but he's one of the best sort of number 9s sort of in the Premier League outside of the obvious ones.
But they look good playing with a back four, don't they? It's interesting he switched and then kept it.
Yeah, I think that the problems have come in that obviously Doherty was much more of a wing back, and Semedo doesn't need to play in that role. And also down the left-hand side, Johnny was a bit of an unsung hero for them down that side, and so they haven't got a natural replacement for that. So I just think it means Nuno's a really good coach. People felt he could only coach one way. He's shown that he can do more than that.
He's a Champions League coach, in my opinion. So how do you see this game going?
Well, I've gone for a Jota, would you believe, to score the first goal and to Liverpool win. Again, Jimenez not playing for Wolves, I think that takes away a lot of their goals as well.
I'm going to go for Liverpool to win and over 2.5 goals. Liverpool might get enough on their own, but I am a little bit worried about them defensively.
Yeah, I think Wolves are decent. I think they're good.
Missing your best player.
Well,
psychologically, it's not good for them. Focal point.
Yeah, but they saw the game out against Arsenal in the end. Defensively,
it's Arsenal.
They're now Spursy, are they?
Yeah.
But I seriously think that Wolves can get something out of this. I don't necessarily. I'm not saying that they'll win, but I think Liverpool are vulnerable in many ways, and Jurgen Klopp has given faith to some very talented youngsters, but there's a lot of youngsters playing at the moment, and I think Wolves, yes, they're missing arguably their best player, but still as a team, they know exactly what they're doing, and that's change of system. I think allows them to be very attacking as well. I can see goals in both ends, and I'm going for a score draw. Okay, game preview 9, Brighton against Southampton. Now we can talk about Brighton.
Right, yeah,
good game of football.
Yeah,
this one here.
I honestly, as I said, I like Brighton. I think he's done a really, really good job, which surprised me really. I don't know why it did, but he done okay at Swansea. Didn't pull out any trees really. He was okay, and they replaced Chris Hughton, who I thought was doing a decent job at Brighton, but he seems to have taken them to another dimension football-wise. They seem to be playing some great stuff. So I made some very, very good signings. I think Lallana, keeping fit is a good signing. Mm-hmm. Again, it's down to the old, will they score enough goals for what their football warrants is what keeps them down. If you stuck a Harry Kane in their team, I think they'll be top 4 or 5. They'll be going for the top 4 without a doubt.
Really?
Yeah, I think they play that well. They've got some. I think defensively, I think they're. Lamptey at right wing back. He's a absolute revelation. He's been brilliant, and I think they look defensively sound, and they attack well. They attack with pace. They just need someone who's going to score the goals.
Yeah, that goal scorer is elusive, isn't he?
That's why they get paid all that money. That's why they get paid all that money.
Totally. Southampton will be kicking themselves, won't they, after going 2-0 up against United and not seeing it out?
Yeah, they will. I think it shows how far they've come that they'll be kicking themselves. Also, I didn't actually feel like they played amazing in that game. They scored from 2 set pieces, but they were quite vulnerable defensively, even in the first half. It wasn't quite as controlled as what it sometimes is. I mean, you don't expect to lose from 2-0 up, and what the nature of the last-minute goal will have hurt. But they're still having a good season. I wasn't that sort of pleased with their performance, because we tipped them to do well in the game against Manchester United last week, and even at 2-0 I never felt totally comfortable that the game was done, and I think that they are missing Danny Ings up front, because the 2 goals have come from set pieces, haven't they, rather than sort of somebody running in behind, and they leave a lot of space in behind their own defence. So it will be a really good game against the Brighton team. I agree with everything that Rob said about them. Yeah,
I think Brighton are one of the most underrated teams in the Premier League, and yet I still think at the moment you can't say they're away from the relegation zone, even though their football suggests that. So your Betfred selection for this one?
I've gone for a draw, just a plain ordinary draw.
A plain ordinary draw. I've gone for the same as well. Score draw.
I've gone for Brighton draw no bets. You get your money back if it's a draw, but I think of the 2, Brighton are the more likely winners.
Okay, let's do the fantasy football picks this weekend. Each of us pick a player that we think will be the standout player. I initially went for Ollie Watkins, so I've had to review mine. I thought he'd, after the kind of game he had on Monday, he'd be really chomping at the bit and would have a really good one this weekend. But look, let's hear from you
Well,
first.
mine's obviously Harry Kane. I think he's been brilliant. I know Son's got a lot of the plaudits, but I think he's developed into a. You know, I always compared him with Alan Shearer. Always. I remember seeing him as a kid, and I rang Alan and I said, "Just seen someone who reminds me massively of you." His response was, I think he'd scored his first goal for Spurs. His response was, he's only 259 goals behind. He's not that far now.
What else did he say about him?
Well, no, I saw him because obviously he's the same sort of age as my son. So I saw him playing at youth team, and I just remember him playing reserves, and I saw him break into the first team, and it just reminded me so much of the way that Alan played. Because our object at Newcastle was to get the ball to. I've always been. You get the ball to the centre forward, he scores the goals. We've done it with Andy Cole. We've done it with. That's what your object. And it just seemed to me that as soon as we got the ball, Alan, what he would do, he wouldn't pass. He wouldn't look like passing. He would shoot, and if he's playing well, he'd score a lot of goals. And it's that. But you don't mind if he's just your centre forward. And he always reminds me, because you look at when he gets it in and around the box, as unselfish as he is, the first thing he does is he tries to shoot. He tries to shoot, and it reminded me a lot. But I think what he's
But
now,
he does pass as well.
his game now has come on. He now drops into midfield. He plays as a 10, and his passing range, as you said, is unbelievable as well. So he can do. You wouldn't have thought that of Harry Kane when he first came in. He's a centre forward. He's a number 9. He holds the ball up. But the way he's developed his game now, he can drop in and he can play, and he links things together and puts through balls. So I just think he's started the season so well. And as I said before, I got a great record against Arsenal. So
You've gone for a hat-trick, haven't you?
I've gone for a hat-trick, yeah.
He will be the star man if he can get that on many levels.
I'm taking a longer term play here. Obviously, Jimenez is out for a considerable period for Wolves, so they're going to need goals from other areas. I think Neto is somebody that has impressed me a lot. You might see him having to play more forward positions. He's down as a midfielder in the fantasy football. Of course, they've got a difficult game against Liverpool, but it's a Liverpool team missing a lot of its defensive parts and also maybe the goalkeeper as well. So in this game against Liverpool, I'm not expecting a hat-trick, but I think as a long-term play, somebody you want to get in.
Okay. As I say, I did go for Ollie Watkins originally, but last week I went for a Man City player. I went for Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, Riyad Mahrez got the hat-trick. That would have been the better shout. I'm going for a City player again, and I'm going for Gabriel Jesus again, because I do think they will fill their boots. Yeah, I understand what both of you, and Mark agrees with you on Jesus. He's nowhere near Aguero, and I agree with that. But I do think he's got the talent to be very, very good. And I think if people get the ball to him in the right positions, I think he will fill his boots.
Yeah, I'm just not sure I'm not sure he's a centre forward in what Aguero is. You know what I mean? I think sometimes he drifts too far wide. He doesn't get in where he should be, and I might be wrong, but it just seems to me that he's almost there, but never quite there when the cross comes in.
Yeah. Okay, team treble, and this is 4-1 now between the three of us. So I'm sure you'll stick a pound on that. Well, no more than that. Who have you gone for?
We've gone for Manchester City. I think with Mahrez getting a hat trick before, playing Fulham at home, I see a lot of goals in the game. So it's a pretty obvious choice, but Manchester City.
Yeah, very obvious.
My pound is safe.
You won't get much back. Mark?
I've gone for, in Italy, Inter to beat Bologna. Bologna kept one clean sheet in the last 41 matches, so they're not very good defensively. Lukaku is having a brilliant time of it, and he scored a couple of goals against Gladbach. Massive win for them in midweek in the Champions League. They won 3-0 at Sassuolo on Saturday, which was a tricky away game for them. Antonio Conte gets paid more than sort of about the other top 4 or 5 managers in Italy put together. So he has to deliver.
Wow.
And he hasn't always delivered, I think it's fair to say, but I think they will on Saturday.
Sounds like Rob when he was at Newcastle. Pound behind Alan Shearer there, I'm sure. I mean, look, there were a few certs in there, and City, I think, will win that one. I'm going for West Brom to beat Palace. I just feel that, looking at the odds of that one, I think it's worth a punt. I think West Brom, as I've said before, will have had a lot of confidence and belief that they can actually stay up. I'm not sure that they will, but I think we're up against a Palace side who can see goals. So for me, I'm going for West Brom on this one, 4-1. Okay, let's finish up by looking at the Champions League group stage, the final match day, of course, of the groups. Match day 5 not completely finished as we speak, but Chelsea already through. They've got Krasnodar at home. How do you see this? And what type of Chelsea side do you think they'll put out? We've talked about their second 11 is still pretty decent.
I think it'll be the 11 that are not going to be playing in the next Premier League game. You can almost guess what Chelsea's team will be for the following league game by the one that picks against Krasnodar. But the Russian teams are having a bit of a tough time in the Champions League at the moment, just not really good enough. I mean, Chelsea, how bad can the team be? I mean, Azpilicueta comes in, Hudson-Odoi comes in, Giroud comes in. The squad that Lampard's got is really, really strong, and they should be able to win this one very comfortably.
They do have good strength in depth, don't they, Chelsea?
Well, they spent a lot of money, haven't they?
Don't start.
They've spent lots of money. They should have at least 3 teams. At least 3 teams they should have, Chelsea.
So how do you see this one?
It's a Chelsea win. They could put their 3rd team out and they'd still win it.
Put you out in the midfield.
I could still wheel myself out there.
Harry's Heroes. I watched that one. This is a really good game, isn't it? Leipzig against Manchester United. Now, as we speak, they haven't played PSG. That's tonight as we speak. But it's a really interesting one.
That 5-0 win against Leipzig, I have no idea where that come from Manchester United. Leipzig are second in the Bundesliga. Went very far in the Champions League last year. They just, I don't know. I think they obviously left too much space in behind. I also think that some European teams still can be a little bit dazzled by Manchester United and the name. And even though it wasn't, it was an empty Old Trafford, Leipzig didn't show their true colours. I would still say, though, that Leipzig are much, much better than that. I'm going to go for a Leipzig win.
Are you? How do you see it? Because it could be absolutely crucial. They get at least something out of this game.
Yeah, I just think I can't see Man United losing. I think they're better in the Champions League than they are in the, as you say. I think it's some teams are in awe of them, I think, still, and the names they've got. I think in the Premier League, people are not bothered. They're not bothered playing Old Trafford. There's no one there, and they've got this. Even Pogba, if he plays, if he's fit, then they seem to be in awe of players. I think you're right in what you say. So I think they play better in the. I don't think they'll get beat.
Okay, Manchester City against Marseille. City already qualified, won the group as well.
Yeah, Marseille had lost 13 on the spin before Payet in the Champions League. Before Payet knocked in a couple of penalties. Man City again. They're already they're through. They've topped the group. Pep Guardiola is going to be thinking about this hectic Premier League schedule coming up. So it'll be sort of a weaker 11, but I still think it will be way too strong for a Marseille team. I would say, though, that maybe Man City to win and both teams to score, because I'm not sure the concentration will quite be there from City.
You go with that, Rob?
Yeah, apart from the fact the score bit, yeah. Again, it's Man City. They've got strength in depth, haven't they? No matter who they play. I think they'll win the game quite comfortably.
Okay, Midtjylland against Liverpool. Now, Liverpool last night did what they need to do, but they've qualified and won the group as well. And we talked about Klopp not being afraid to put youngsters in. How can you see this team?
I mean, you've seen what he's done in some FA Cup ties previously. I expect it to be like an FA Cup style team. He's been moaning quite a lot about the fixture congestion. They haven't got the size of squad that Chelsea and Manchester City have got. They've got a lot of injury, so it will be, again, sort of the 11 fittest players that he can sort of put out there. Midtjylland got a good result against Atalanta. I'm going to go for a draw, just purely because I think it will be a very weak Liverpool team.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. What do you think?
I think it's probably Liverpool. It'll be a weakened team, but they seem to have a lot of good kids coming through. They have a lot of good kids coming through, and he seemed to give. I think the only reason he's put faith in them, a lot of them, is because he had to. He had so many injuries, but they've all seemed to come in and done really, really well. And again, I think kids will play, but I think their kids are good enough to win.
So you fancy Liverpool in this one?
I do.
Okay, that's it, Rob.
Brilliant.
Enjoyed it?
Yeah, very much so, mate. Yeah,
good.
Listen to your drivel again. It's been great.
We're not in the same household, so we can't have that substantial meal, but we can do at some point in the future.
I will buy you a Scotch egg one day, mate. I will.
That'll be one day. I've got the coffees today. I'll hold you to that. Mark, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Okay, that is it for this week. We're back next week to see if George Clooney has got his results right or not. And look ahead to the big games next weekend, of course. From everyone here at the Racing Post and Betfred as well, if you do gamble, please gamble responsibly.